This is Stories to Share. My name is Sean Driscoll, and I'm on the board here at the Civic Center, and I'll act as moderator for this evening. Stories to Share is a series started by Joe Steinfeld, where we have talks here at the Jaffrey Civic Center on the first Friday of the month during the winter. This is the second talk in the 5th season of the series. And we're only able to do this because of the generosity of the people who support the Jaffrey Civic Center and our sponsors, all of whom are in the house tonight. So we want to thank the Savings Bank of Walpole, the Monadnock Ledger Transcript, and Beltates for their support of this series. So the way this is going to work is that Kathy Bollerud, our speaker, will talk, and if time allows, at the end we can take a couple questions. We will end at, this was like a baseball game, we're starting at 5:05, so we'll end at 6:05 or earlier. And then following the talk, there'll be a reception in the conference room, graciously provided by Nancy Beltate and Jean Duval. And so we hope you'll stay and talk and maybe ask questions of Kathy after the talk. A month ago, in this space, John Knight, the executive director of Historic Harrisville, spoke. And he spoke about the vitality of maintaining vitality in small towns in the Monadnock region. It was a wonderful talk. You can see it on our website if you're interested. There is a through line between John's talk and tonight. And part of it is that Kathy is on the board of Historic Harrisville. And so I think in that you get to see the connection between small towns in the Monadnock region and the people in them and places very far away. In other words, that the people underneath this mountain, the communities underneath this mountain, have a connection to and an impact on people living under very different mountains a long, long way from here. And so that's one thing that I think is really wonderful about this talk. The second connection I'd like to make is that the woman who founded the Jaffrey Civic Center, the place that we're in now, was named Marion Mack Johnson. And she was a teacher, she was an educator. And she founded this institution with the hope that it would provide a place for artistic, educational, and civic activities. And when I was researching Kathy's vitae to do a press release, I saw that when she was getting her doctorate at Harvard, she studied under a woman named Carol Gilligan, who I'm also a teacher, and Carol Gilligan is a hero of mine. And Carol Gilligan wrote a book called In a Different Voice. And it's a book that Harvard University Press says is a small book that started a revolution. And the revolution is that Carol Gilligan and the people with her took girls and their education seriously. And that's a revolution that somehow is still going on, and yet paradoxically is taken for granted. And and Kathy has been involved in that revolution, I think you'll see in the talk tonight, to this very day. And so this gets to another point that Joe Steinfeld understood when he started this series. And that is that in these towns, in the Monadnock region, there are people who are willing to share their expertise and their witness and their wisdom and their inspiration. All we have to do is give them the place to do that and then show up and listen. And so I'd like you all to join me in giving a warm Civic Center welcome to Dr. Kathy Bollerud.
Thank you, Joe. Can you silence my phone? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Closer? All right. I'm thrilled to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity to share with all of you Some of you I know very well, but you haven't seen a lot about this part of my life, and so it's a total delight to share it with you. This is a story about an accidental humanitarian. Ray and I went on a vacation in 2008 in India, and we went to Delhi in the colorful, riotous alleyways. We went to the serenity of the Taj Mahal. We went down to Rajasthan, to the old Mughal cities. We spent about 3 weeks, but after that, what we like to do is we go on a tour and then go off by ourselves. So in thinking about how to go off by ourselves, I called my timeshare company. I had an unused timeshare in Florida, probably like many of you. And I asked them, do you have any timeshares in India? And they said, we do. But you'll have to go to the mountains. And I was like, I'm on board. So we signed up. We found a driver to take us for 10 days up into the mountains. We started in Delhi and drove up towards that little blue dot, which is the Kumaon region. It takes 4 days from Harrisville to that blue dot. It's quite a ride. The reason that we went to this area, or why people go there, it's very famous for the sunrises over the Himalayas. Fortunately, because of time change, when you get there, you can get up really early and watch the sunrise for the first couple of days. So this is a sunrise from about 2 weeks ago. I was over there. And this is what happens when it comes over the mountain and hits the white snow peaks. It's just a gorgeous area. This is those snow peaks during the daytime. This is the road. These are what the roads look like. It's unbelievable. You have to imagine that road with two-way traffic and cows and trucks and sheep and goats and people. It goes like that for about 14 hours from the train station in Haldwani up north. Okay, you get the idea. And this is, somebody will be coming around that corner. So when we started, they're always honking. And we're like, why are you honking? And then you realize you honk in order to save your life, because if you don't, somebody will come around that corner and not know that you're there. The other thing that happens is they have monsoons once a year, and the monsoons wash away the roads. So aside from normal dangers, you have things like this. And the first time we went, we got to this part of the road at night. So we're driving at night in the dark. There are no markers for where the road disappears. It was horrifying. But when you get there, it's really worth it. So our driver, when we got to the timeshare, he said, you can't stay here. White people don't stay here. And we're like, oh, yes, this is exactly what we want. And we realized we couldn't ask him to drive. Like, the roads were just impossible. And I'd had this idea that it was like a movie, you know, one of those E.M. Forrester movies, The Raj, and I'd ride around and have tea in the mountains. They don't have tea in the mountains, really, in this area. And they don't have roads, and people don't have cars. So we quickly realized everybody else was walking, and we would walk too. There goes Ray down one of the paths. And there are a whole series of villages tucked in folds in the mountains all over the Himalayas. Some of them have roads, some of them don't have roads, some of them you walk to. It's an agricultural area. They do terraced farming. So because the slopes are so steep, because of erosion, climate change, farming's really endangered there. And the other problem is in this area, in India, the inheritance laws are, if the father dies, the land gets split between the children and split between the children and split. And so now all the farms are too small really to support families. So it's subsistence farming, but it's bare subsistence. It's also, and this, I had never seen this, this is in 2008, it's a patrilocal society. What that means is that young girls at around the age of 15 are married in arranged marriages to someone not from your village, not someone you've ever met, You might get to spend about 15 minutes, half an hour with them ahead of time to quote, decide. When you marry, you move to your husband's village, you take care of his parents, you take care of your own children, you take care of the animals, you do the farming. All the manual labor is done by women. It was stunning to me. I'd never seen anything like it. This is a young girl with her first child. Of course, one of the problems is because the girls are not that well educated and they're such young mothers, that there was a lot of infant mortality and illness in young children. Here are the women. This is something that they do every day. They climb up the slopes. They carry machetes. They say we're very safe in this area because all the women have machetes. They cut this grass and carry it down. Ray tried to lift one of these when he was much more younger and had a really hard time. These women are so strong, you can't believe it, and rail thin. They take care of the animals. They do the farming. They do the manual labor in the farming. If there's an animal or a machine, the men control it. If it's manual labor, the women do it. Then they come home after, they spend about 10 hours a day doing agricultural work. Then they come home and they have about 5 hours a day of work in the house. This is a very typical kitchen, typical stove. She was making us a cup of tea. And she also takes care of the elders. These women are doing something that you rarely see. They're sitting there doing nothing. You don't see it. Usually, they knit while they walk. You know, they're always busy. They get about 23 minutes a day of leisure. That's what they figured out in very recent research. They're gorgeous. They, in spite of the heavy burdens that they have, and their burdens are made heavier because a lot of the men migrate out to the cities or to the army for employment, so the women are left at home. These women tried to sell me ganja, marijuana, and then they went trotting off down the road laughing. The children in this area are just magnificent and totally captivated me. When I came home, though, these were the girls that really bothered me. These are children of women who were repairing the road, you know, those holes in the road. They break the rocks and they repair them by hand, and these are their children, and a lot of them live on the side of the road. And when I came home, I just couldn't get over what I had seen. And I kept wandering around saying, I'm supposed to do something for the children in this area. I was saying it to everybody, and Lee Garland, my neighbor who's here tonight, said, you need to go meet Jay Hardiker. Jay is a guy who, an immigrant from India who lived in Peterborough, who traveled in the same area in 2008, came home with the same hook in his heart, and founded Himalayan Education Foundation. And so Lee sent me over. I met with Jay and Monica Lehner from Greenfield, who's the chairman of the HEF board. Jeff Williams, a social worker from Boston, and Betsy DePrima, who's here tonight. She's on our board from Hancock. So this little group started meeting, trying to figure out what could we do. And it turns out that Jay had found a school in this area of the Kuman region, Himalayan Intercollege, founded by the young woman Dev Bala and run by her, who's the principal of the school, and her brother Prakash, who's the director of the school. Jay had met them. He had a long talk with Prakash about the school. It's an English-speaking school, and their mission was to educate rural children. They believed that if you educated rural children, they could do as well as any other kids if you gave them a good education. When Jay left, he gave Prakash $200. They'd had the school for, I think, 8 years, and nobody had ever given him a donation before. And nobody actually had ever listened to him before, is what Prakash said. So for years, we thought that Devala and Prakash's father had founded the school, until I really started talking to them about it. And it turns out this woman is my hero. This is Devala when she founded the school. She's 4'9", 84 pounds. She graduated from college, wanted to be a teacher, but couldn't get a job, and spent 6 months looking for a job in Nainital, which was the market city about 8 hours from where we are. Had no luck, and she decided, if I'm going to teach rural children and poor children, I'm going to have to start my own school. So she got her father to ask the Maharaja, this area is still sort of controlled by Maharajas, they own a lot of the land, if he would help her start a school, and he gave her this cowshed. So this is 8 hours away from her family, no car, no electricity, no running water, no telephone, no internet. There happened to be jaguars in the area. She moved there by herself and started going door to door asking people to send their children to her school. And the local people all thought, she'll never last. For one thing, young women never go anywhere alone in this region. They still don't. Like if I try to go to the store, they'll send somebody after me. You know, women just aren't by themselves, and she was by herself. She managed to recruit 2 students the first year. She had classes in the cowshed during the day. At night, they rolled out the beds. They helped her with getting the water. Took her a day to get groceries. It was unbelievable. After about 6 months, one of her cousins came and stayed to help her. I want you to look at this field because you're going to see this, what this field looks like now, but this was what it looked like when she started the school. After she was there about 6 months, Prakash, her brother, came and lived with her. His idea was he would help her get computerized, and he would stay for 2 weeks. Well, he stayed for 2 weeks, helped get her computerized. Another problem came up, another problem came up. He's been there 30 years. She lived in the dorm for 28 years. She just moved out of the dorm, and he still lives in the dorm with his wife and children. So when Betsy and Jeff and Monica and Jay and I started trying to figure out what to do, we decided to look into the status of women in the region in India, because the UN had just come out with a big report on eliminating extreme poverty in the world. And basically what they said was, to eliminate extreme poverty, you need to educate girls and women. So we decided to focus on them. At that time, HEF had 330 students, 30 girls. So we decided that we would start scholarships for girls. India at that time was 113th of 130 countries in the world in terms of gender equity. Girls had higher infant mortality, lower education, early marriage, early childbearing, poor nutrition, because in these poor families, the last person to get fed was the mother, the woman. And in isolated mountain villages, the gender disparity was the worst. Women's lives essentially revolved around food, fodder, and water. And it was projected it would take 131 years to get to gender parity. So we're 15 years into it now. So what HEF, we decided to do very early was to focus on girls and women. This was the time when, I'm sure you've seen the book 3 Cups of Tea, and Greg Mortensen had done this fabulous work in Afghanistan and had built 1,000 schools. And then there was a crisis or a scandal about whether they had teachers in the school or who was supervising. There were huge sums of money going over there, and we were terrified of something like that happening to us. So we decided we're going to focus on one village, one school, and we're going to go deep. So we made it a mission to know this community really well and to be deeply involved with it, so we know exactly what's happening to all the money and what's happening for the children. And in order to do that, we realized we needed outstanding local leaders. And we've been extremely lucky with Prakash and Debola. You give them a seed and they grow you a forest. They're quite amazing leaders. So In 2010, after we started HEF, a group of us went over. This is Pamela Warden, who some of you may know from Groton, Mass. She came over and she's in the preschool. If you look at that, it's a tin room with a tin roof and wall-to-wall outdoor carpeting on the floor. There are no books, there are no toys, there are no educational supplies. The teachers are sitting in the corner writing notes. The children were just sitting there. And we actually talked to Prakash and Deepal and said, we're worried about the kids' cognitive development because they're so bored. They're getting no stimulation. This is an upper classroom. It's the same thing, tin walls, ceilings, no windows. When it rains, you can't imagine what it sounds like in there. Nobody can hear anything. This is Kate Watkins, an art teacher who came over with us. This was the library for 330 students. They had 6 volumes of the World Atlas and a couple of volumes of the Book of Knowledge. That was it. No internet, nothing. But the kids were unbelievable. They're so cute. And the culture is astounding. They have a tremendous regard for their culture and deep pride in it. They have more festivals than you can imagine. So we decided in our support of girls and women that we would do 20 scholarships for, 20 scholarships for girls. And actually 65% of our scholarships are for girls, 35% are for boys who are in single parent families, because mostly their mothers are widowed. So the first year we got 20 scholarships. By the second year we had 40 scholarships. And we went over, this is one of our first scholarship students, Hemlada. And what's interesting about her is she was about 13 at that time. There's no high school available for girls. If you look in the back corner, you see someone standing in the doorway. That's her mother, who doesn't want to come out because she has no teeth, right? My cousin Judy came with us on that trip. She was 65. She's standing next to Hemlada's grandmother, who's 65. And when I saw that, I thought, if we don't stay, Hemlada's going to be her grandmother in 40 years. And it sort of really made it profoundly meaningful to me, like why we had to do this. She's now a teacher, married to an army officer, and she's in Assam, I think. She's doing very well. So we were able to connect in the beginning with a group called IDS, India Development Society, out of Chicago. And they gave us some grants, and we did a little fundraising. They had boarding students at that time, but no hot water. So we put in solar hot water and built a computer lab science center, and then built this library. They didn't have a big building that the kids could fit in. Betsy took over the library and has made great friends with people in Delhi who sell us books. She's been filling up the library and starting a reading program over there. And you'll see as we get further along sort of the success that she's had with it. It's been amazing. Whenever we go, the first thing that happens on the first day is they have an assembly and all the students stand out there and they sing the national anthem, or they do yoga, or they have speeches, whatever. Well, the kids were always fainting. Like, we'd be standing there watching and kids would plop over and they'd drag them off to the side, keep going. And we were like, why are these kids fainting? And they go, oh, Indian children faint. And we're like, no, they don't. That's ridiculous. And so we decided to do a nutrition study. And we did a 5-year study. We did body mass measurements and blood testing and everything. Well, it turned out that 41% of the children were undernourished or malnourished. And nobody knew it. As Prakash said, it never occurred to us, like we thought they have food, so they must be healthy. But they really didn't know anything about nutritious food or what to feed the children. So we got some nutritionists involved, and they taught the parents about better nutrition for the kids. And we did a feeding program. There were 140 children who were really at risk because of malnutrition, and we fed them lunches for a year or more. And that was supported by people from this region, that initiative. And we don't have any fainters anymore. So this is the school 2 weeks ago. This is the field that Devbala was standing in. Behind that, that's a 3-story building. That's a high school. There are 890 students. Look at all the girls. We have 350 girls. We're moving towards parity. Our last graduating class had 65% girls. That was unusual, but promising. This is the middle school. This is a computer science center. We had a gift from Thistle Farm in Nashville, Tennessee, and we were able to buy computer labs. So we have 3 computer labs now. There's Betsy and Beth Frost, who have really taken on changing the educational environment at the school. When we started, it was a very British, strict, cold, every once in a while they'd hit the kids. Wasn't an environment that you wanted to educate your children in. And so Betsy and Beth have really stepped into that and done a lot of work with the principal and the teachers around changing not only teaching practices, but changing the culture. And I have to say, this year, for the first time, the campus is joyful and purposeful. And I thought, this is a school I'd like to go to. And this is the first time. So it's taken 15 years, but they've really made a huge change. This is the preschool now. Remember the little class, the tin room with the carpet? This is Jeff, one of our board members, doing homework with the kids. They're doing a lot of, we're encouraging them to do a lot of collaborative work and teamwork. These girls are preparing him. He's in a big contest, statewide contest. The older students volunteer to do reading with the younger kids. This is Jim on a rainy day. Lenny, who came with me last week. Then the other thing that Betsy's done, I can really sing your praises today, was hook us up with Anil Pradhan. This is a 30-year-old man who was named as one of the top 30 geniuses under 30 in India. He has taken on rural education in a big way. And he started a program called the Young Tinkers Foundation. And the Young Tinkers Foundation, they put maker spaces in schools. And they teach kids to solve problems through innovation and entrepreneurship. So HEF was able to raise money in the Monadnock region last year to build 2 maker spaces. And so while I was there this week, they built it. It's on the top of the high school. And they opened the first equipment. So this is the first 3D printer. They're going to have robotics, 3D printing, all the latest technology. But what was astounding to me was they took this out of the box, the kids laid all the pieces on the table, and they built it. The teacher was standing off to the side, talking to us, talking to other people. I'm like, how did you do this? How did these kids know what to do? And he said, we taught them ahead of time, and they solved the problem. They built it. They built 7 of them in the next 24 hours. So in this program, it's a 4-year program. The first year, you learn how to use the equipment. The second year, you go to your village and you identify a social problem that you want to solve. The third year, and second and third year, you innovate to solve the problem. And the 4th year, you work on learning how to present your solution and how to sell it. So we are starting in grade 5 and putting 550 kids a year through this program. The teachers are graduates of our school, and one of them was one of our scholarship students. It's sort of perfect. If we're successful, which we certainly hope we'll be, Anil Pradhan wants to make us a base for the Himalayas. We're the only makerspace in tinker space in the Himalayas, up in the mountain area in northern India. And so they want to have mobile tinker vans that they'll send out to other rural schools that can't afford to put in their own space. So we're beginning to spread into the region in terms of the capabilities that we can bring. This is our first girls graduating class. So 259 of our girls are in college or have graduated from college. 90% of all our graduates, boys and girls, go to college. In India, if you scored a certain point on your test scores, you get free college. And it costs about $200 for the kids have to raise that amount for their room and board. But so it's easy for kids to get into college from out of our school because they all do really well on their exams. These are two of my favorite girls, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. But now I looked at sort of the changes in the roles of women in India since 2008 when we started. And I think that there are three leading indicators. And the first is changes in attitude. 78% of the people in India supposedly believe in the importance of gender equality, which is very different from where we started. School improvement for women and girls has improved dramatically all over India. The marriage age in our region was 15 when we started, and now it's 23 for girls. So that the opportunity to educate their daughters has helped families to not marry them off so early. Health's improved slightly. India has a strong program to support reproductive rights in India. They have almost everybody has two-child families now, and they're moving towards parity. For every 1,000 children born, 500 boys, 500 girls. It used to be 600 boys, 400 girls, which was due to infanticide and selective abortion because of gender. And that's really not happening so much anymore. In our area, female literacy is still abysmal. It's only 69% as compared to the boys at 92%. And economic opportunities are extremely limited. There are no jobs for women. There are no jobs for men. People migrate to the cities and get poor jobs. They don't go to the cities and get good jobs, even college graduates. And college graduates are among the highest unemployment in India. You know, everybody has a master's degree or a doctorate, but no job, or not. It's hard to get jobs. And India is still 131st in gender equality. But we have some wonderful stories. This is Divya, a girl that I've known since 2010. Her father died. Her mother was working as a maid in a very poor situation. It was a very poor family. And when she was 16, her mother died. So she's really been on her own. She was an HEF scholarship student. We sponsored her. And after she graduated, she was unable to go to college, but she went and got yoga training. She did all kinds of training. Ended up, she's one of the first female firefighters in the state. And 3 or 4% of the applicants get into Harvard. 0.003% of the applicants to get into the governmental services make it. So it's like 10% or 1/10 of 10 times harder, is what I'm trying to say, to get this job. She's amazing. She's bought land. She's going to build a house. I was talking to her on the phone last year, and I said, Divya, you got to be saving money. She says, oh, I have an investment program. I have a fixed investments. I'm secure for life. And she is, actually. Pramesh, one of our first male scholarship students, he's a professor of physics now at a local university. Buana comes from a very poor family, was unable to afford to go to college. She ended up joining our women's program became a master knitter. She was Knitter of the Year in 2022. And this year I was just there and I'm like, where's Buona? She's gone. Turns out she and her sister now own and run a grocery store in a nearby market town. Manju was my translator back in 2010. She lives in Mumbai now. She runs a social media site for an Italian company. Last time I went over to India, I went and met her in Mumbai. She said, I'm going to be in Bologna for a while for my job. I go for 2 months every year as part of my work. So it's unbelievable. She was also a daughter of a fatherless child. She was a fatherless child, very, very difficult life. Babita, her father was jailed, terrible stigma in the town. She was an HEF scholarship student. She's one of our translators. She just came and worked with Lenny and some of the other people who were there last month. She's in a technical college studying to be an engineer, which is a really good path in terms of getting a job. So our school is always ranked number 1 or number 2 in the state. The kids do beautifully. We're the only private school in the region. We started out where we're the only private school in the region. Now there are 25 private schools, but they don't support needy students. And 40% of our students are on scholarship. We do 20%, the government does 20%. We provide 200 scholarships now. We've added grades 9, 10, 11, 12. You know that. We're leading edge in technology, and we're an economic magnet for the community. There are over 160 jobs in our community directly related to the school or to the women's program that I'm going to tell you about. So, how am I doing on time? I'm good. All right. So the second year I went over, we had 40 scholarship students. I thought, boy, we've really made it. We're in great shape. This woman, Bimla Karki, she's a tall Indian woman, very unusual. She's a school principal, and she says to me, what are you going to do for the women? And I'm like, nothing. What makes you think we're going to do something for the women? We never thought of it. And she said, you have to do something. They really need it. And I was floored. But I came home and I told the HEF board that we've had a direct ask to come do something for the women. What should we do? Well, at that point, we were building the library and doing some of the infrastructure, and we decided to wait a year, and then I would go back. We realized we knew nothing about the mothers at all. We knew nothing about the women. And so with Manju as my sidekick and translator, we went around the village and we invited all the women to come to a meeting and just asked them about their lives. And it turns out what we discovered was Chaukori is a little town. I use that term loosely. But all of these women come from farms way out in the boondocks. And what they do is they leave the farm with their children, move to Chaukori, rent a small room, maybe this 10 by 12, live there for 12 years while their kids go to school. They had no jobs, no animals, no gardens. They all come from different villages. They didn't know each other, so they really had no community. And they wanted to earn money. That was the one thing they asked me, can you help us earn money? And I'm like, well, what can you do? And they're like, nothing, we're not educated. I'm like, oh, great. And then I looked at them and I realized they were all knitting. And turns out they all knew how to knit. And so I said, you know, have you ever sold your knitting? Do you want to try to sell your knitting? And they were like, absolutely, we know how to knit. And the men who were there, and I was really worried how the men were going to react to us helping the women, and they're great knitters. You won't believe what they're going to be able to do. They were extremely supportive. So we made a deal that I would get them good yarn because they had terrible yarn. They would knit for 5 months. Dublin School was coming over, and Dublin School kids would bring their knitting back, and I would try to sell it. And that plan worked beautifully. We came back. I brought the goods to Harrisville Designs, chicken patter here now, and showed it to their staff, and they said, well, they really know how to knit, but they don't know anything about quality or finishing or blocking or all the things that make a big difference when you're knitting. And so you have to teach them that. Well, I don't know how to knit. But we had started Himalayan NARI, that means Himalayan woman. And so the next year I went back and I'm supposed to teach them how to block and whatever. Jung, who was a teacher at Dublin School, was coming over to live for the year, and I'm telling her my problem about I don't know how to knit, I don't know what to do, and she says, I'm a master knitter, I'll teach them. And she was there for a year and she taught them quality, and you can look, I brought some things for you to look at and to buy if you want, and you'll see every product is always perfect. They never ship anything that's not perfect. The other problem that I had was the women don't speak English, and I don't speak Kumani, and they didn't know how to use computers. We had no way to communicate. So 3 students over 2 years from the University of Washington, graduate students, volunteered to go over and live there and work with the women and help me. The only problem was that the diet was so bad that all 3 of them had to be evacuated for different health problems, serious health problems. And I realized I couldn't use American students as my liaison because I couldn't guarantee they'd get home alive. So that failed, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And Mamta turned up. She was a young woman who was recently divorced, which is really verboten, who had learned to teach yoga and had gone to our school as a yoga teacher, but she spoke English and she could use a computer. And Prakash said to me, why don't you get Mamta to run Himalayan NARI? So we asked her. She didn't know how to knit. She had never managed anything. She didn't know the women. She was younger than all of them. Betsy and I were there for 4 days. We said, we'll orient you, you'll be fine. And 7 years later, Mamsta's still there. She's a magnificent manager. If there's ever a mistake, it's always my fault. It's never her fault. This is true. We rented a space for the women to meet, and what happened was it leaked, so the wool was getting wet. They were stealing our equipment. I had managed to get a sewing machine and it disappeared, and we realized we really needed a space of our own. We did a GoFundMe locally in the Monadnock region, and were able to build a women's center. 5 years or so later, we outgrew it, and now we have, this is a 3-story women's center. The first floor is a store. Then we have a workshop on the 2nd floor. And this is where the women do their knitting. Everybody's always like, what are you going to do about a successor? You know, you can't keep doing this alone. Well, I have a partner, Manvi, who lives in Chicago. She was on the board of one of the groups that gave us a grant early on, and she said, I'll help you with NARI, and the next thing you know, she's now on the HEF board. And she said, you're not making any money on these hats. You need to do something where you're going to make a profit. She said, I'm going to start a dye operation. And she happened to have a twin sister, Mansi, who lives in India. And she sent her twin sister up to our school, and her twin sister recruited an old man who was a dye master out of Dehradun or somewhere. And they built a dye workshop, and we've started dyeing. They're doing beautiful work. We've launched Lofty Peaks yarns. And we're also starting to transition our own knitting to using natural yarns and hand-dyed yarns. These are our hand-dyed yarns. We won the Innovative Product Design Award for the Fair Trade Federation in St. Louis a couple of months ago, and we were runner-up in Best Branding also, and that's due to Michelle Aldrich and Corwin Levi, who are our partners in branding. Here we are. We've also had help from other people. Nora Gahn, who lives in Harrisville, she was the editor of Vogue Knitting. She designed some of our first products. These cable hats over here were designed by Nora. There they are. We've been able to get in the Museum Store Association, the Fair Trade Federation, and a lot of these social justice, social enterprise groups. One of the problems that we have with NARI also, we realized that we can only sell in cold climates during 3 months a year. And so we thought, let's start something that we can sell in warm climates 12 months a year. So this is Carla, powder maker. I don't know if you knew Marina, powder maker from Harrisville, but this is her sister-in-law. She just came over with me, and she's like, when people come, they have to work. And I'm like, what can you do? She says, I don't know. And I said, do you know how to sew? And she said, I'm a tailor. Right? It's a field of dreams, you know? So here's Carla. She trained 6 of our women and probably about 20 children in sewing. Here are our first tote bags. Now, this, you can see in the corner is the Women's Center, the building there. This land was just given to us by the school, and we are in the process now of expanding the Women's Center. We're now adding a sewing room and expanding the dye operation. And this is when the land was transferred, the women had a huge party, and this is the women, they all show up for the party dressed to the nines. That's our catalog. You can buy our products locally at the Co-op or Alice Blue, Harrisville Store, Hancock Market. We have 67 artisans, 5 salaried employees. We pay 3 times the local piece rate so that our women are comfortable and they control their money. They don't give their money to their husbands. We have about $40,000 a year in annual sales, and we have the 2 startups now. But the main thing about NARI, it's a successful business if you successful in the nonprofit world, but as the women say, it's not an NGO, it's our emotion. It's an incredible community. Friends in the Monadnock region have been amazing to us. They've provided scholarships. They've funded a lot of our startup initiatives, like the Women's Center, the nutrition, the Young Tinkers Labs, the library. A lot of people from this area have come to Chaukori and shared their skills. And of course, they buy and sell our products, and lots of people have volunteered to help me at craft fairs or setting up today or doing all kinds of things. This is one of my favorite pictures of the women, and the reason is they're moving forward joyfully. They're dancing together. I think it really shows their community. And let me see if I can do this. They sing before activities, like before meetings or before festivals. They sing together as a group. It's a way to sort of align themselves and center themselves for what they're about to do. And I think and so these are the words to what they were singing. This is the time you must come together. Come join us, put shoulder to shoulder and face the storm. What we're working on now is supporting the Young Tinkers Project. It's about $11 per student a year. It's crazy. And then, of course, the Women's Center expansion. And this is how we got home. So what was a 14-hour car ride this year? For the first time, we took the helicopter 37 minutes. But Monica Lehner from Greenfield was writing me every 24 hours, helicopters are really dangerous, they have crashes all over. But we made it. So there we are, Himalayan Education Foundation and Himalayan NARI. Thank you.
So you can pick your own questions, but just repeat the questions so that we
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are there any
Questions?
questions?
Comments?
Congratulations.
Are you a 501c3 organization?
Oh, yes, we are. Absolutely, yeah.
What's the next big project coming up?
The next big project is, well, the Young Tinkers program will cost us about $6,000 a year, and the Women's Center, we're trying to raise about $8,000. Yeah. Yes, Ty?
Did you have trouble getting students at first? Because often parents would want to keep the children doing the chores
Oh,
at home.
Just repeat the question.
To give up these little workers and let them come to school.
oh, okay. Sai's asking, did we have trouble getting students because the parents wanted to keep them at home? I would say no. Devil had a lot of trouble getting students in the beginning because she was a single girl. And when we started providing scholarships to girls, we were really wondering if anybody would take them. And it turns out we were flooded, that people were eager to send their girls to school. Yes, sir.
Kathy, I'm reminded of a trip we took to Tanzania a few years ago, and we went to a school, and at the school there were several young children. There were very few books. They were all wearing their brothers and sisters and fathers' jumpers, and we asked, when do they eat? And they said, oh, they don't eat. They
Right.
come to school very early in the morning, they walk miles and miles, and they're here all day with no food and minimal water,
Mm-hmm.
and then they walk home at 5 o'clock at night. And you mentioned nutrition,
Yes.
and the solution in Tanzania was that this company, Thompson Safaris, would buy grain for the school,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would get stolen. And so it was just, you couldn't make any headway.
Yeah.
How did you cover that piece in these schools in India?
Well, in our school, it's a very strong community. Our school's in an enclosed area, fenced in. We have guards at the gate. When I say guards, they're like these little old British men, Indian men, you know. But not anybody can walk into our school, and nobody walks out taking things. I think people are really grateful for what's happening. So we've been lucky in terms of not losing any equipment anymore, or we do lose books, but we're delighted about that. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your
Well, I'm
question.
just wondering the food piece, where did the food come from, is what I was
The families provide their own food. We don't, we did the feeding program, and we paid for that, but that was only for 1 year until we felt like we got everybody up to an acceptable level of nutrition.
Thank you.
But
Yeah.
some of the students are boarders, aren't they?
Yes. Yes, so the school provides 3 meals a day to the boarding students. Right. And they change that diet to make sure that it's much more nutritious.
And you had a cow program for a while, right?
Oh, right. We, for a while, we started a dairy when we were really focusing in on nutrition, and we got a cow, then we got 5 cows, then we had 10 cows, and they were having male cows, which you can't do anything with in India. And over time, what they realized was that local people were starting to provide good milk too, and that they could buy milk, and so they got rid of the cows. It was too much for the school to try to run a dairy. Yeah.
Now I'm going to turn it over to David Beltate, the president of the Jaffrey Civic Center.
Well, Kathy, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Oh,
of the
thank you,
Jaffrey Civic
David.
Center for speaking, and a small token of our appreciation.
Oh, great. Thank you.
As usual, at these talks, I come out of it 5% smarter and 5% more humbled. I have to say, this is really heartfelt story. Please. I'd like to thank Jean Duval and my wife, of course, for providing refreshments. Are you pointing at me?
Over here.
Oh, okay. Also like to take a moment to thank the sponsors who are here. Thank you very much for all you do. It really makes this successful for us. And if you have a few moments, please take a moment and enjoy some refreshments in the back. And if you feel so inclined, we have a begging bowl out there, and none of this happens without money. So we'd love to have any donations you're willing to give us. And unless there's anything else I'm missing.
Oh, I guess the one other thing is, oops, we have some of the women's knitting here, and you can buy it if you're interested, or just take a look at it.
Yes. please.
Lida's going to be our salesperson. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.